Welcome to Ecofactors, a podcast from the Atlantic Wildlife Institute on Canada's East Coast. We sit down with people doing the real work and the communities pushing back against development that doesn't make sense for us or those we share the environment with. We are united with our guests from everywhere in honest conversations about what it actually takes to protect the earth that we call home. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to Riverside. I am being joined today by Penny Mott and Meredith Fisher from Seniors for Climate Tantramar. So even in that introduction, there's so much to unpack. Welcome to Ecofactors.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Lisa.
And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join today. This is, I think we're approaching episode 20, so that's really exciting. Spring has arrived, so you're my first guests this spring of any spring, and we have a lot to discuss. So I'll just jump right into it. I guess what people are probably wondering from the beginning is, what is Seniors for Climate Tantramar, and then perhaps each of you can talk a little bit about who you are and how you've got involved.
Okay. Well, it turns out that in the late summer 2024, a group of us gathered together just to talk about environmental issues and climate change, and Janie Brooks of EOS Eco Energy mentioned that there was something called Seniors for Climate, and perhaps we should investigate and find out a little bit more about this. And she thought it would be of real interest to us. So after that meeting, we went to the website, Seniors for Climate, and read a little bit about it, and made a phone call to people in Toronto, and found out that it was a newly formed group, and that they were planning some action on Seniors Day, October 1st. And asked us then if we would like to join other communities in Canada in planning an action for that particular day. So Meredith and I said, well, we can try. And off we were. We then very informally found ourselves part of this newly formed organization called Seniors for Climate. And since it was well into September, we didn't have much time to plan an action. But we got busy, and
we came up with an idea of what we could do as our climate action, and we decided to have, Penny's idea was to have a kitchen party. And it was going to be October 1st, so we were thinking, we'd have to be outside. It'd be nice to be outside. And maybe we could do something that we just learned a little bit more about ourselves in green burials, and how incredibly they save the world from so many emissions. So that we thought, seniors, if everybody's trying to plan for a funeral or trying to figure out where we want to go and what we want to be done to us or as we leave. And so we learned more about green burials, and we decided we'd have a speaker come who has actually planned her own green burial, and we learned more about it. We also found that there were some people in Pictou County that were making baskets that you could be buried in, and there was a guy in Fredericton who was making pine boxes. So all very natural products, and so we learned lots about it ourselves and felt that seniors as a whole large part of our population, maybe this could be a possibility in decision making as to how to be more tuned into making a difference when it comes to climate change and emissions.
So it was quite a departure from the usual marches and rallies that other communities were planning, but we were quite proud with the turnout, with the interest, and realizing that cremation does create an enormous amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So that was our first effort with Seniors for Climate. And I'm not sure that we were even calling ourselves Tantramar at that point, but after that action day, we began to realize that there had been other events in New Brunswick. So we connected with women in St. Andrews and St. John and Fredericton and found out what they were up to, and it was just a wonderful collaboration. I don't know, collaboration isn't the right word, but just connection at that point.
Yeah, like starting to build that network.
Yes.
So were you two friends before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then so you both sort of founded the Tantramar chapter.
That's what it evolved into.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
And actually, interestingly enough, 4 of us in our group have been on the opposition line for a long time, and with the shale gas opposition. So we've been well used to knowing how to deal with that and what to do and how to, teach other people about that. Yeah.
Because that was one of my next questions was like, okay, so you knew each other. So that was like one thing that brought this together. But before this, I mean, you mentioned like you didn't have any time to plan. From September to October, there was no time to plan. That sounds very familiar to me as an activist. And so taking on this new like activist lifestyle, that sounds like you're telling the real story. I believe you. No time to plan, exactly, sums it up. So did either of you have any background in environment, in this kind of action work before?
Well, apart from 13 years ago when we found ourselves quite actively working and becoming members of the New Brunswick Anti-Shale Gas Alliance. But I'll be honest, after that, the moratorium came into play, I would not say that I was very active in terms of environmental issues until the last couple of years.
We did have a small environmental group for quite a long time called the Tantramar Environmental Alliance, TEA. And that was a really interesting group too. So that's sort of how we morphed into maybe knowing each other, I suppose, and having common interest in the environment and recognizing that there was work to be done. So I guess it sort of, kind of gradually we were able to kind of pick up and meet other people that were like-minded. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
really?
totally. And you were saying that it's 2024, that was October 1st, 2024. So from then until last summer, were you doing something once a year, kind of like a main event? And then, what kind of things did you work on before?
Once we made the connection with these other women in various areas of New Brunswick, the next action, and that's, when I say the word action, that's really very important when you're talking about Seniors for Climate. It's a very action-oriented organization. And the next event was Earth Day, April 22nd, 2025. And for that, we traveled to Fredericton. Everybody we could possibly find from around the province traveled to the legislature and had a rally.
Okay.
And it was cold, and it was
cold and
wet, and it was an amazing group of people. And the premier actually came out the door. We were in front of the legislature, and she came out in her little high-heeled shoes, and she just looked so cute. And she asked, actually, her people came out the door to ask if she could come and talk to us. And we had a microphone set up and speakers, but we said, oh my gosh, that would be great if she'd like to come. Yes, we'd love to have her part of this. And she came out. She spoke very well. She told us that was her birthday was Earth Day, and so every year she's very conscious of thinking about the earth and the environment. So she made all the right noises, and she spent a lot of time going through the group of people. I had taken my 16-year-old grandson with me, and she spoke to him, and she spoke to everyone. She was really very engaged in what we were doing, and she's told us actually that we should keep in touch with her, and that the property of the legislature is where the people belong to be. So it's the people's place. So she was super.
We felt very encouraged.
Yes, we did.
By that
Yeah.
connection with her that day.
I like that word, encouraged, and because I was thinking this work can be really rewarding, and it can make you feel like you're connected to a bigger change. And I want to come back to that, and the why and the how of the work that you do, and why it's really important and how it's getting done. First, so I'd like us to fast forward a little bit to summer of last year, when the RIGS project, as it's sometimes known, or the Tantramar gas plant, was announced for Centerville. So just as you know, a couple kilometers from Atlantic Wildlife Institute, who is where this podcast lives. And I'd like to hear about how you decided that this was the highest priority for Seniors for Climate Tantramar to be involved, and how from there your work started to, I think, fast forward a little bit with weekly meetings and things like that.
Well, I remember thinking, Lisa, July 14th, just shortly after that, well, we have an issue. You know, prior to that, it was a more generic thinking about climate, and which is enormous to think about. We had an issue, and it was a no-brainer that that's where we would then focus our energies, because this was a huge threat to climate.
We had also, at the same time that was happening, committed ourselves to having an event at the Fall Fair here in town. And it was Penny's idea to invite people from our colleagues from Seniors for Climate in Brunswick that we had met, to invite them to come to town and do a climate corner, which is what the event we were creating was, to try to do a climate awareness project to help people be more aware that there's lots of things that people could potentially need to be thinking about. So we'd already made that big commitment to organize that. And then, so after that, we're going to totally focus on the gas plant.
Well, we really wanted to use Fall Fair as an opportunity to highlight the existence of Seniors for Climate. So, we made ourselves a big component of the parade, which is, it's huge in Sackville. Everybody turns out for Fall Fair parade. So we had bicycles with climate banners, and we had the Red Rebels were here, and it was really quite marvelous. And then we had an information area, and where people could come by and learn about what was going on.
Yes, Conservation Council came and set up a table, and we had all kinds of people, Cape and Anne's group, CRED, sorry. WI was there with a great, and lots of kids activities were what we were thinking, parents with their children would come and do things.
Good. And yeah, it sounds like a really, I've seen pictures of a lot of the different colorful people that were there, of all these multi-generations, and people bring their dogs. For me, that is one of the most important types of events where everyone is invited and everyone feels welcome. We, after all, live on planet Earth all together. Therefore, a climate event should be that everyone is there. And I do think it's also really important to have the voice of the youth and the voice of the elderly populations working together. Do you get that sense? Do you tell me more about RIGS and Seniors for Climate? So
Okay.
there's a big 500 megawatt gas plant that's proposed for the Tantramar Marshes on the Isthmus, that little piece of land that connects Nova Scotia to New Brunswick, which, if the sea level rises too high, would make Nova Scotia an island. It's also billions of dollars of transportation that we would lose. It's also home to migratory birds, and the only way that mainland moose can get to Nova Scotia. It's also home to a lot of people and neighboring to the property that they're proposing the gas plant on. And so the air quality, the water quantity and quality are at risk. People's lives are at risk. The noise pollution, light pollution, et cetera, all of those things that come with a peaker plant, which a lot of people around the world are actually really familiar with, because this is a threat not just for your community, but for any community where they plan to put these things, with the lack of foresight, I think, that goes into planning a real transition from fossil fuels. So all of that said, why is it so important to Seniors for Climate to fight this thing as your first priority?
Well, I think we should mention about at this point, we have expanded from being just the two of us, and we invited a number of people to join us, and we're now a steering group of 8 people, and we meet weekly. And
We're 9.
9 of us.
Yeah, we're 9.
And there's no questions asked. We show up every Wednesday morning, and we are busy for 2 hours every Wednesday morning, planning all kinds of different initiatives to make our presence known, our feelings known about this proposed gas plant, as well as the weekly meetings. 2 of our members on a weekly basis attend Sackville's Farmers Market.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing is we're 9 people, but we're 4 men and 5 women, and we are amazing together. Like, we can we have this relationship that we respect each other. We all bring different things to the table. Sometimes we have a little, we have to agree to disagree on that, or some very respectful way of resolving differences. But generally, we have a very solid group of people that really are committed to doing this work. So it's an amazing group we have.
So how did everybody agree that this was the most important thing to put most of your energy into?
Oh, hard to say, Lisa. You just find the right people, and at the beginning, some people would not stay much beyond a meeting or two, and they would say, "This is too serious, too much. You ask too much,
too commitment."
And so when we found the 9 people who in no way feel that it's too much, who really want to do this.
So I can tell you one example. I mean, there are many examples, but one of our members, Tim Hicks, who has recently come back to Sackville, has lived in California and other places, came up to Logan and I at the market table. We have a market, as Penny was saying, table at the market almost every week that provides information for people and shows them the map where the gas plant is proposed to be and how close it is to Cap-Pelé or Shediac or Sackville or Amherst, Dorchester, Memacook. So Tim came up to our table and he put his business card down and he said, I want to help. That was the way Tim has become involved with us. It's just like this incredible group of people, and Harold Putma, who's a retired doctor, he stepped right up, and he's taken the medical and the health implications of this gas plant, and he's just run with it with CAPE, and they've developed all kinds of amazing information based on the health impacts. It's CAPE is Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, and they're an amazing network of doctors. So it's just sort of, people have brought these things to the table, and in various ways have gone and come back with information, and how can we look at this situation with regards to the gas plant and all these things. Oh gosh, it's
a really interesting community on even a wider level that I see as the coordinator of the coalition, where you have over 20 organizations who all come from different areas of expertise. Like you said, there's health, and then there's environment, there's water, there's the Indigenous knowledge, there's seniors, there's youth groups, there's student groups, there's professors, there's bands of nurses. They're like, it's endless on their reasons why this shouldn't happen, and that's in itself inspiring. I think the network and the community that's kind of come around that Juliette always says. Juliette is one of the neighbors to the gas plant. I believe she's also active in seniors.
She joined us.
She did join.
She joined us.
And so she always says, like, the community is amazing. I didn't know any of these people before. Right? Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, this is Megan Mitten's riding. She's green, and so she's been very opposed to this gas plant, very knowledgeable and very good voice in the legislature as our MLA representing us. She knows, she knows what's going on. And this region, just for a second, is known to be a region where people care about these things and the environment. And we have a map, we have a page of 27 environmental designations and protections just in this area, including 2 UNESCO. I mean, holy mackerel, that just, like, it speaks for itself. Why screw that up? Holy,
Absolutely.
That's special. We live in a very special place.
Mm-hmm.
But these things should not be happening anywhere, regardless.
Yeah, so that brings me to the idea that of the different types of actions that you have been taking, different types of angles. So there's some movement in government, maybe at the provincial level and the municipal level. There's the public education piece with markets and rallies and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more about what is the kind of the action strategies that come out of your weekly meetings? And
Sure.
Yeah.
You're right that in mentioning some of those things, we have this outreach on Saturday mornings. We have been part of educational meetings around the area. We have had a letter and postcard campaign to the provincial government. We have, let me think, what else have we been doing?
Well, the public information sessions have been really good and really well attended. And out of those actually have come more people saying, how can we help? And in knowing people from our, friends and associates here in this area, we find people like Gregor McCaskill. He's an economist. It's just been like such a huge voice for why this gas plant doesn't make any sense at all in terms of cost and the economics of it.
and he recently gave a presentation to council, although I think so Seniors for Climate Tantramar has done a few presentations to council.
Five
Yeah,
presentations.
5 presentations. And I want to just highlight my favorite, my favorite highlight from that was when Peter Hyam answered a question, because the thing is, like, you have your presentation ready and that's all good and well to like give the presentation, but the hard part comes when the questions that are you prepared for the questions? And someone from council asked Peter, if not in Tantramar, then where should the gas plant go? And he the look on his face was just like so priceless. Like, he was like, well, there isn't a place in the world for a new fossil fuels plant. There's no place in the world. There's no place on this planet for a new gas plant right now in this time of a climate crisis. Yeah, so I'm at home crying watching the council meetings. That's my life now. But so
It's true, Lisa. We use those words, climate crisis, climate collapse, that sort of thing. And our group is about greenhouse gas emissions. So it's obvious to say a new fossil fuel plant must not come into existence here or anywhere. We now have the technology for better and cheaper ways to produce electricity. And that's the kind of thing that we've been saying to our town council, or our municipal council, I should say, to encourage them to take a more aggressive leadership role in protecting the constituency of Tantramar.
mm-hmm.
And it's been very difficult for them to really grasp that. They would say, thank you for coming, So we've made some progress with respect to that.
I did see recently that a lot of councils around the world, a lot of governments around the world are being asked to sign on to the Fossil Fuels Non-Proliferation Treaty. Maybe that's something we want to ask the Tantramar Council to do. And all of the surrounding councils, in fact, since we are all at risk. There are definitely actions that can be taken, not just yeah, we agree with you, thanks for your presentation. Which, that brings me back to the Seniors for Climate slogan, which is later is too late. Like, it is, the house is burning down, as per Greta Thunberg's quote, act like your house is burning down, which hopefully we don't have to actually have any houses burning down because of some kind of wildfire that happens that catches the gas plant on fire in the marshes where there aren't enough firefighters. I mean, what is the thing that worries you the most about this plant?
Well, yes, the immediate danger of that sort of thing, but the destruction to this precious piece of land is what bothers me. The harm to all life, not just human life, but all life, with this harmful pollution it would produce. The detriment of any economic development in our area with such a horrific monstrosity just outside of town. Tourism, but that's minor compared to
and the chaos it will cause the people that actually live there, our friends and the farming community, and it just, their land values will just plummet, and they would, you would never, these are proud people who have had this land in many cases for generations, and proud farming tradition here. So they're, of course, they're so worried. They are worried sick. So, and we are worried sick for them too. So yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, we have now friends in Pictou County who are going through exactly the same thing. Friends now in Lorneville, same situation. People, the chaos it is being created at just the thought of these things moving into the area. It just is Um,
And it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
In 2026,
yeah.
this is just totally unnecessary. And it really became, I think over the months, we've come to realize the poor management of this power utility in New Brunswick. It's just been infuriating. I was going to say earlier that one of the major things that's happened with our little steering group of 9 people, we have learned so much
yeah.
in these few months. You know,
sure.
we really didn't. We didn't know a lot about wind and solar power, battery storage, or how the kinds of things that that help a power utility make decisions. We have learned a great deal.
Yeah. And
You know how the power company is making decisions, though. Have you figured that out? Because I still don't know why they wouldn't just use the cheaper option. That's
Well,
cheaper,
exactly.
which is batteries.
and try not even things that would be expensive at all to do, like the time of use, and looking at the peak times and educating ourselves about when it's cheapest to use power, because then you're not only saving power, but you're saving money.
The people of New Brunswick could certainly understand more about the running of the company. And Lisa, you know, I don't know whether it's a proper decision or not, but it seems to me that this Riggs proposal was just easy.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too darn easy.
Mm-hmm.
It really wasn't looking at the big picture of how to modernize the grid in New Brunswick and work with Quebec and Nova Scotia, and you know that was more complicated, it would seem.
Right.
And
It's interesting because
accountability.
it's not in their integrated resource plan. So the integrated resource plan is actually a really nice document, and if anybody gets a chance to read it, the NB Powered Integrated Resource Plan has a pretty good plan for how to manage power increases and demand side management and all that stuff going forward. And it does talk about integrating renewables. One of the talks I listened to this morning by the director of the Fossil Fuels Non-Proliferation Treaty was saying you can't burn the fossil fuels to make them go away. Like the big wigs in the fossil fuel world, they get that this is not the way forward. Like keeping burning fossil fuels is not the way to get rid of them. But everybody's just hoping that their barrel will be the last barrel. There's no transition without making the steps towards something different. Otherwise, you're just keeping the ball rolling on fossil fuels. And right now, we're increasing our fossil fuel burning with this plant, not decreasing it. And so if there is any question to that in the public opinion as to whether this is actually an renewables integration project, it's not.
No.
It's
And
not.
also, I think the idea of NB Power contracting an American company in this day when we're trying not to rely on the U.S. and you know, it's just nonsensical that we'd be thinking of having an American company contracted for 25 years to come here and build this thing and run it for 25 years, and then all for what's estimated at $3.5 billion of that would go back to the U.S., to the company. I think everybody's shaking their head.
Yeah. How does the work of Seniors for Climate Tantramar align with Seniors for Climate across the country? Are there any other groups with Seniors for Climate who are fighting peaker plants across the nation?
Not to my knowledge. We do connect with the national group, and we have across-country Zoom meetings monthly, as well as lots of information sessions from the national organization. However, it's just I'm picking up that most of the Seniors for Climate groups are talking about action against climate change. They're not talking specifically about areas where there are peaker plants or pipelines or LNG facilities. I don't hear them talking about that. It's interesting that for us, it just provided a focus for us that we couldn't turn away from. But I have not heard that. You certainly hear people across the country at these groups speak about how it is difficult to get Canadians to really confront climate issues, that research is showing that all Canadians are worried. You definitely have your head in the sand not to be noticing, but we don't know how to talk about it well. So the real initiative this year, 2026, for Seniors for Climate is about breaking the climate silence. Feeling that once we could break that taboo about telling your neighbor that you are worried about climate and you don't really know what to do about it, and so on and so forth. So a lot of plans are coming into play about how to set up situations where people can express their feelings about climate, because we think action will follow the conversations.
I think that it's important for people to talk more about it. I think one of the problems that we have in Canada, which isn't usually thought of as a problem, but I think of it as a problem, when it comes to environmental education, is that most of us have clean water and most of us have access to space and most of us have clean air. And so it's not super visible that these things are going to run out or be threatened. Whereas like in Australia, you can't turn your tap on for 8 hours of the day because there is a serious drought for most of the time. In different places that I've lived, it's a big problem. Like in Japan, you really have to be careful with your garbage because there's nowhere for it to go, because something like, I don't know, 70% of the country is uninhabitable due to the high mountainous territory. So here in Canada, we just have a lot of space. We've got it good, So it tends to be like, but everything's fine. And I got my kids and I got to raise my kids and I got to have company and I got to do my job. And I got all these things make it really hard for us to feel the pressure that's required in order to like make that change, in order to do that, like act like your house is burning and be in the climate crisis.
There's a really good analogy, and that is, look how long it took us to learn that smoking was bad for us. Mm-hmm. Decades. When the companies were telling us it was cool to smoke and, everybody should smoke. And so everybody was smoking. And then, sort of in the 80s, 90s, people, it was lung cancer, and there was more and more information about how the health impacts were definitely related to the cancer. Lung cancer was definitely related to smoking, and even if you weren't a smoker yourself, if you were in the presence of others who smoked. Anyway, it took us a long, long time to learn these things.
But I think for many of us, we feel frightened because we don't think that we have the time. It's happening so quickly, Lisa, that, we don't have the luxury of that long time. As Meredith says, it seems like it takes 20, 30 years. And I can remember people, David Suzuki being one, telling us in the 80s that we had to make some changes. Wayne Dyer was somebody who spoke very articulately about what climate change would mean around the planet, around food shortages and wars. I can remember those speeches, but it wasn't enough to bring about change. And now those things are happening. And so you're right. In Canada, we still are very privileged around this issue. You're right.
But in a lifetime, a lot of things can change. Like I learned to type on a typewriter, and when I try to tell people who are just getting out of high school that, they're like, "What's a typewriter?" We had CDs, and before that, we had records. Or, my grandma never used a computer. He lived through World War II. She moved to Canada on a boat that took like 3 weeks, and babies were born and people died, and she had canned goods hidden underneath the kitchen floor in case there was a bombing. So like the world has completely changed, and the world right now, I think what we're feeling is that it's changing again. Some of us are on the cusp of that change, and other people are still in disbelief, and it's hard to believe the amount that it will change. And whatever it is that makes it change. Some things look negative, but maybe they're actually good. Like the Strait of Hormuz is closed.
We have to stop lagging behind in this country. You know?
I think the interesting thing about Seniors for Climate is seniors, we have a lot of life experience. We have time where, we bring a lot of various specialties to the table. Our kids are so busy trying to make ends meet and raise children and, do what 40, 50-year-olds are needing to be doing. We're the ones that are able and willing to try to make some kind of an impact on this problem. And we have a vote. We have a big chunk of the vote of this country and the world. So that's power.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you like to see everyone doing? What could people do to help you or help themselves stop the gas plant on the isthmus?
Well, I think we realize that we really can't depend on the EUB to say, no, this is not going to happen. So I'm sure that our small group will be becoming laser focused on the provincial government with whatever way we decide to do that, whether we plan to go there, whether we plan to fill their inboxes, whatever it is that we need to do. Perhaps have more demonstrations as we've had this past week. We will become louder and more aggressive in our fight.
Mm-hmm. And whatever the EUB, the Energy Utilities Board, comes out with as their report from the hearings, hopefully it's got a whole whack of conditions attached to it. Either no way this plant is not going ahead, or maybe if you guys can, and it's like Sisson Mine, they're saying, is for 10 years now. Sisson Mine had a whole list of conditions. Not one of them has been completed. So, there's promise also there. So it's, we're very hopeful, and we tell everybody to be hopeful. Mm-hmm. It's such an important thing for us to try and overcome and help people educate themselves to why it has to be opposed.
Mm-hmm. And do you think there's anything, like if you could ask everyone to do something, what would that thing be?
Yeah.
Stand up and be counted, whatever way you're able to do it. I think that's really true. I've been a little discouraged at the lackadaisical attitude about this, feeling somewhat helpless about taking on such a task. But I was just going to say that for me, at this point in my life, it's really becoming a wonderful thing to be an activist. And maybe modeling activism, and then others like to join when they see that it's a positive experience to be actively involved.
I would say vote for politicians that are going to support the bill of a clean, healthy environment, clean air, clean water as a priority in every decision that's made. We need politicians, we need leaders who believe that. Not just, we'll put that on the back burner and do some potholes or something. Also, go to the PCIC, the Protect the Chignecto Isthmus Coalition's website and sign the petition. And there's things you can write letters to the premier. You can telephone the premier. You know, there's all, you can do the same with NB Power and their whole board of people. You can email them, write them letters, and tell them that you believe that there's better ways to have our energy in more respectful and thoughtful ways is what we would all wish for. And at a reasonable cost to us.
Absolutely. Great answer. And if all of a sudden I could just transfer you beep, 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 over to Premier Holt's office, and this was suddenly a video call with her and the both of you, what would you say to her?
I'd like to remind her about some of the things she said that Earth Day a couple of years ago about what was important to her as a New Brunswicker, and to talk to her about that we see that as a threat to us as people who live in this province we love. And why would she want that to be her legacy as a premier, to have this happen on her, what's the word I want?
Her watch.
On her watch,
yeah.
I think I would really try to connect with her as a fellow New Brunswicker who loves this province. And she clearly does too. Mm-hmm. And she's raising a family here.
And she could be a star if she was willing and able to come to see that this kind of project needs to be opposed in our province and everywhere. Also, I'd like to say to her to think about what's really important: clean water, clean air, as human beings and as every living thing needs. Don't lose sight of that. You know, there's profit, yes, there's business, yes, but without air and water, we don't need any of that stuff, you know, because we won't be able to survive.
Absolutely.
And it's been shown by those wonderful people at the EUB that economically it's not a wise decision.
It's not economically, it's not environmentally, it's not on a governance level. There's a lot of people who oppose it, a lot more than you can possibly imagine. There's even those who oppose it who are scared to speak up, of which I'm still unaware.
Yes, there are.
So on the discouragement level, I think that, you know, people like us have to do the work that we feel we need to do, no matter what, right? No matter what the outcome of the EUB, or no matter what it seems that the politicians are deciding against the environment and the people. Sometimes, at the end of the day, we wake up, we still have to do the same thing because that's what we do. So that in itself is encouraging, that you are living the life that is true to your heart and is true to the land you walk on, and to the people who are your neighbors, and to your family, and the people who you don't know who will come after you and inhabit this land.
Exactly.
I commend you for the work that you are doing on this, and thank you for all of your time with this project, because it's very important to me as well. And when we get the decisions against the plant that we are looking for in order to protect the spaces that we love, we can have a celebratory drink on the next episode. Sparkling soda water for to celebrate, and I hope to see your smiling faces when that happens.
But it's true. But as Seniors for Climate, we will continue. You know, even if we do get the right decision in terms of this of the Riggs proposal, we, you know, just around climate issues, we will remain a force in Tantramar.
Well, thank you.
You get rid of us that easy.
And thank you for your time on the episode today. It was an honor and a privilege to spend this time with you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you very soon.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks very much for what you do.
Hey.
Bye. Okay.